Welcome, my beautiful soul, for another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is really dear to my heart. We're going to talk about sisterhood, feminine relationships. And I hadn't actually planned to do this episode, but yesterday in the mystery school, we had a very interesting conversation come up. And all of the women in the mystery school were like, yep, this is me. And so this is why I thought it was important to share this conversation with you in this episode, because I am pretty sure that if all the girls from the mystery school were recognizing themselves in that, you are probably going to recognize yourself as well in this situation. So the thing that we were talking about is that we are craving deep sisterhood. But at the same time, if we're really honest with ourselves, we're also afraid of it. And so, as we were talking about that conversation in the mystery school, the girls were saying, I realized that in my relationships with my girlfriends, I often take the role of the leader, the one that is asking all the questions, the one that is leading the conversation, the one that is giving. And I'm struggling to receive. And that somehow puts me in a position of control, because by being the leader, asking all the questions, I'm kind of controlling the relationship and where it's going and how it's evolving. But then I end up happy because I had a nice conversation, but also a little disappointed because maybe I didn't receive what I was needing in that moment, or I didn't allow myself to fully receive, or I didn't fully open and allow myself to be vulnerable. And this is something that I recognize myself in as well. This is something that I've journeyed with, that I have observed in my life, that I was myself really often taking the position of the leader, the one that is giving, the one that is asking all the question, the one that is listening, and not the one that is talking for the 2 hours and just receiving. And when I got really curious and I checked with myself, why am I doing that? I realized it was actually my way of being loved. That I had learned as a child that I needed to give in order to be loved. My story is that I was bullied as a child. I didn't have a lot of friends. I remember having one childhood friend, and that was it. And sometimes she would bully me as well because, girls' relationship as children, teenagers, and even adults can be tricky sometimes. And so I felt really lonely as a child. And I remember at some point, I was like, I want to have friends. Like, I'm tired of being on my own and being bullied and being laughed at school and not having friends and just being in my own little bubble singing songs, because that's just what I was doing. I would create songs, write poems, watch the stars, read my books. And that's just what I would do to keep myself busy. And I realized, oh, when you are kind and you give other people what they want, they become friendly with you. So I'm just going to become someone that's really nice, that's kind, that gives others what they need. And because I'm an empath and a hypersensitive, it's really easy for me to see what people need. And so I would just give it to people and then hoping they would love me in exchange. And little by little, with my strong personality, that led me to leading the relationships through the questions I was asking, through the support I was offering, through what I was sensing and telling them what I was sensing. And I remember I would sometimes have friends tell me, wow, you see things that I don't even see in myself, or you put words in things that I feel that I wouldn't even be able to express. And I guess that is part of my gift. And this is also why I do the work that I do. But in my relationships, while that was actually beautiful for my friends, that slowly started to catch up with me because I wouldn't allow myself to receive. I wouldn't allow myself to be vulnerable because I was afraid that if I would receive and be vulnerable, then I wouldn't be loved really for who I am. People would see my flaws, my weaknesses, my inner darkness, and that wasn't really lovable. So that was my story, and maybe you have a similar story, or you understood in a way or another that it was better for you to give rather than to receive, better for you to show up as a leader in the conversation, in the relationship, rather than the follower, because then you would be in control and you would feel safer. And all these mechanisms, they came up because they were survival mechanisms at some point. They are here to protect us. They were there to protect us. But as adults, now you're probably realizing that there's something imbalanced about that. It's holding you back from actually connecting at a deeper level because you're still in control, because you don't feel completely safe, because you're not allowing yourself to receive and to be vulnerable. And for us women, this is so important because we are beings of connection. We thrive in community. We thrive when we are together. We thrive when we open our hearts, when we cry, when we laugh, when we can see each other, when we are witnessed by someone else. We really are beings of community. Like human beings in general thrive in community. But when you look at the feminine and masculine energies, yin and yang aspect of human beings, the yang is much more individualistic and focused on the self. Whereas the yin, the feminine, is much more focused on the other, the community, the togetherness, the oneness. And this is why we are shifting at a collective level back into a feminine era, because we are invited to come back to each other, to come back to living as a village all together, to come back to communities. This is why we need more feminine leaders in the world, because feminine leaders think about others, they think about the community, they think about oneness. How can we make things better for everyone? This is how women think. Most women, if they are fully in their feminine energy. And this is really important at a collective level, but we are only going to get there at a collective level if we actually start at an individual level. If we actually start by looking at our relationships. How am I showing up in my relationships with my sisters? Am I really allowing myself to be part of the community at the horizontal level? Or do I want to be the leader? So I'm a little bit higher and I feel a little bit more protected, a little safer there, but then I don't connect as deeply. You see, we all need to come down into our hearts, into our vulnerability, into our truth, into fully receiving to build those communities. And that starts with our sisters, and then with our villages, and then with our countries, and then with the whole world. And there we will be truly living in community. That, of course, is not going to happen overnight, but this is where we are going as a collective, and it's going to happen over 200-300 years, I guess. Maybe faster, maybe I'll be able to see it in my lifetime, but I don't think so. And so to underline this point, I wanted to share with you the story of the Buddha. The Buddha was one day sitting with his beloved cousin Ananda, and Ananda was also his attendant, taking care of him. They'd spend a lot of time together as a result and have a lot of deep conversations. Obviously, I mean, it was the Buddha. What do you expect? And Ananda got the habit of asking the Buddha a lot of questions because he would contemplate his conversations with the Buddha and then get his own clarity and then ask clarifying questions to the Buddha. And that was actually a way that a lot of teachings came through and then became Buddhism, thanks to all those questions that Ananda asked the Buddha. And so one day they are sitting by the Ganges, the beautiful river in India that goes through Varanasi. If you've never been there, it's such a beautiful place. And they are sitting there, and Nanda asks to the Buddha, Buddha, I think that spiritual friendship is half the spiritual path. And the Buddha says, no, Ananda, that's not true. Spiritual friendship is the whole spiritual path. And so what did the Buddha mean when he was saying that? He meant two things, actually. The first is that your friends, your mentors, the people you surround yourself with, they are going to uplift you. They are going to influence you. They are going to determine and help you become who you came here to become. If you surround yourself with people who are positive, who uplift you, who believe in you, who see your gifts, you're going to start seeing yourself and you're going to start thriving. If you surround yourself with people who don't really resonate with who you are, who push you down, who are triggered by you, who are not interested into the same things, who you feel that you can't really be fully yourself or that you don't really belong with, this is going to prevent you from really becoming who you came here to be, from stepping into your full potential. Because, like I was saying, we are beings of connection. And through those connections, we thrive, we heal, we see ourselves, we unlock our power, our confidence. And on a physical level, we also regulate our nervous systems. And so, if you are on a path of self actualization, of evolution, and you see that you want to become a 6-figure business owner or a 7-figure business owner, or you want to really become a spiritual leader, whatever it is that you're walking towards and that you want to step into, surround yourself with those people, because that is showing your brain that it's possible to be like that because they're already there. So they're showing you the path. And that is also regulating your nervous system. Our nervous systems are regulated by the people we spend time with. So if you are with someone that is always very relaxed, makes a lot of money, has a lot of success, had a lot of creativity, is a lot in her feminine and playful and receiving energy, this is going to be possible for you much faster than if you isolate and try to figure it out on your own, because we are beings of connection. And the second thing that the Buddha meant with that is that in relationship, especially in friendships and in sisterhood, there is a moment where triggers are going to show up. Conflict is going to show up. Well, guess what? Those triggers and those conflicts are the doorways to your healing, are the doorways to your awakening and enlightenment. Because every trigger comes from your ego, because there's a part of you that doesn't feel completely safe, that doesn't feel completely loved or seen. And so when you can be really honest with yourself, and once you get over the frustration or the anger or the fear, whatever it is, and really ask yourself, what is happening here? Why am I jealous? Why am I upset? Why am I angry? Why am I sad? It opens the door to uncovering more of who you are and where you need healing. So surrounding yourself by like-minded women is going to skyrocket you. Whether that's with mentors, in a community of sisters, or finding women really that are your tribe. And that is also why I actually called the Swan Temple my Divine Feminine community. That's why I called it the Swan Temple, because it's a wink to the story of the ugly duckling. I'm sure you've heard the story when you were a child. The Ugly Duckling is the story of a swan, actually, that is in a family of ducks. And everybody makes fun of the swan because he looks different. She looks different. She doesn't swim in the same way. She doesn't walk in the same way. She doesn't behave in the same way. And people are like, who are you? You're weird. You're different. And the swan just feels not good enough because of that. And at some point, it becomes so bad that the swan is rejected and she runs away. And she's on her own, really wondering who she is, trying to figure herself out. And then at some point, she sees beautiful birds flying in the sky. They're so majestic. They're so potent. They're so beautiful. They're so gracious, so white, so shiny. And then she looks down in the river, and through the winter, that beautiful bird has actually become a swan. She thought she was a duck this whole time, and she felt like she didn't belong. Because she didn't, because she was a swan. And so once that little swan went to the other beautiful swans that were flying around her and then landing on the lake, she felt that she belonged. She was like, these are my people. And I can finally see myself in the reflection of the lake. And it is so important when you feel different, when you are more sensitive, when you're an empath, when you're an intuitive, when you're a healer, when you're spiritual. It's very important to surround yourself with other swans, with other women who are like you, who can see you, because that is how you are going to see yourself and see your gifts and see your essence. And there's a double meaning to that story because swans are also divine feminine symbols. The Cygnus constellation in the sky, the swan constellation, is actually at the position of the womb of the goddess Nut. Goddess Nut is the goddess of the sky in ancient Egypt. And she birthed the day. She birthed the sun every single morning through her womb. And so in her, if you look at the sky, the goddess Nut was the Milky Way, basically. And the Cygnus constellation is exactly at the position of the womb of the Milky Way. So the womb of goddess Nut. And so the Cygnus constellation has always represented, because of that, the womb of life, the celestial womb. It represents a portal where you can access the spiritual realm. It's a portal where you rebirth yourself, where you rebirth your light, your essence, the same way that the sun was being rebirthed by goddess Nut every single morning. The story that ancient Egyptians were telling is that she was swallowing the sun every evening through her mouth, through her head, and giving birth to it through her womb, because the Milky Way was moving throughout the night. So there is so much symbolism in this story again, and so much meaning of why the Swan Temple is called the Swan Temple. It's because all the women in this divine feminine community are spiritual seekers, empaths. They feel like the ugly duckling in their family, but the truth is that you are a swan and you belong in our community, so that we can thrive together, so that you can regulate your nervous system, see yourself for who you are, unlock your highest potential, and embody the divine feminine goddess that you are. There's so much more I could be telling about swans. There's been swan priestesses throughout time. There are like rituals that we can do with swan feathers to call in fertility. Like, this is really ancient wisdom. This is not known a lot. This is why I'm talking about it as well. But I'm sure that as you're listening to me right now, there's a part of you that is remembering, that is feeling activated. Maybe you have felt a connection to swans, but you never really knew why. Maybe swans have been appearing in your field, not there. Now that they came back with the spring in another hemisphere, maybe that you are seeing swans around you. This is an invitation to come back to your divine feminine essence. And if you want to do so and surround yourself by a sisterhood of other swans, of other spiritual seekers, empaths, intuitives, and feminine leaders, join the Swan Temple, because our divine feminine community is actually open right now. I open the doors for 1 week every single year, and the doors are open right now until Friday, the 5th of May. If you're listening to this episode after the 5th of May, then join the waitlist, because I will be opening the doors in the spring of 2024. That's the next time I'm opening the doors. So if this is calling you, join us, because this community is so magical. We are really a beautiful community of women that are looking to be their most authentic self. And we talk about all topics that are spiritual. There's really like no taboo. And this year it's going to be a bit different, because I'm calling in experts. We're going to have a meditation workshop. We're going to have a human design workshop all around the centers, that you can connect with your gifts, with your essence more. We're going to have a workshop that is going to help you connect with your cycle, and how connecting with your cycle can actually give you clarity on your purpose. I'm really excited to talk about that. That's going to be really fun. It's not me, it's a dear friend of mine. She has a lot of expertise in that domain, so she's going to talk about that. We have other experts coming as well later in the year. We're going to do summer solstice rituals, fall equinox rituals, goddess workshops, guided meditations, healing practices, divine feminine embodiment. And cherry on the cake, what I am most excited about is that this year we're also going to gather for a retreat in person in Belgium in August. So this is really juicy. I cannot wait, because after the Bali retreat, I decided I was just going to add retreats to every single of my container, or at least as much as I can, because it is so magical to meet in person for us to come together, to hold hands, to dance together, to light the fire together, to laugh together around the table, to feast, to have cacao ceremonies. There is just something so magical when we come together in circle to heal, to connect, and to thrive. So, I want to finish this episode by going back to what I was talking really about, the leading and the giving, because I want to really make that super practical for you. If you are craving that sisterhood and you don't really know where to begin, you're like, yes, but I'm also afraid and I don't understand where that fear is coming from. I want to shed a light on that. Let's go back to a few hundred years when you were a gifted woman and when that was dangerous. When the witch hunts were happening in Europe, you were there in a past life. Your grandmother was there, your ancestors were there, and everybody suffered deeply from those witch hunts. And we are remembering that now. And that shows up in our feminine relationships, in our sisterhoods, as a fear of connecting deeply because we know we can be betrayed. At the time, if you were too much in your power, or if you had gifts, or if you would help another woman give birth, or if you were a herbalist, you were taking the risks of being tortured and killed. And some women were tortured and killed without trials. I have a whole episode about the witch hunts if you want to listen to that more. I'm not going to dive into that again today. But I really invite you to listen to it because it's really potent and it's still very active in our modern day, just differently. One of the days that, and one of the ways that it shows up in our modern life is that fear of deep sisterhood, or that jealousy in sisterhood, or that competition in sisterhood, that discomfort that you can feel in sisterhood. Because if you gave one of your sisters, like literally one of your friends or a sister or your mother or your daughter, if you gave her in, you are saving yourself. And so a lot of betrayal happened in those times. And that led to women isolating, disconnecting from each other, not coming together in circles anymore, not healing anymore together. And it created a deep mistrust. And so today that is showing up as a fear of really opening your heart, of really showing up as vulnerable, of sharing your gifts with people in general, but especially with your sisters, because it could backfire. She could give you in, or she could be jealous, or there could be competition. And we really need to heal that at a collective level if we want, first at an individual level, of course, but we really need to heal that if we want the divine feminine to be fully embodied on earth and those community to thrive. And so if you're experiencing that in your relationships, that mistrust, that fear, that craving at the same time, and observing yourself as leading and giving instead of fully receiving and being fully yourself, I really invite you to put your hand on your heart. Observe yourself when you're showing up in these situations, when that leader, giving, protecting energy is showing up in a conversation with a friend. Just tell her, give me a moment, I need to go to the washroom. We always need to go to the washrooms anyway. So just pretend you have to go, or maybe you really have to go, and then that's good. You kill two birds with one stone, like we say. Just go to the toilets, put your hands on your heart, and take a deep breath there, because what is really happening is that you're afraid of not being loved for who you are. You're afraid of not being fully safe and seen for who you are. And so you are protecting yourself by leading the conversation, by giving, by being a little disconnected from her. But deep down, you're craving that sisterhood. So once you're there with your hand on your heart in the washroom, set the intention. All right, now I shift. I am loved. There's nothing I need to do to be loved. There's nothing I need to do to be seen. I am a swan. If she's a swan, she's going to see me. She's going to recognize me. When you are with your people, it's effortless. It's a pleasure to connect. There's nothing you need to do to be loved. So remind yourself of that. and then set the intention of what it is you want to receive. From this conversation now on, or from this moment of exchange that I'm going into, I want to receive kindness, or I want to receive a good ear, or I want to receive advice, or I want to receive clarity on the situation I'm navigating. What do you want to receive from that exchange? Because often we are so good at giving. What about receiving? So if you go into the relationship with the intention of receiving, it's going to change the dynamic. And of course, you can still give. Giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. But energetically, intention is so powerful. The power of intention really shifts a lot in our lives. And don't underestimate the power of intention, seriously. So if you set the intention to go into that relationship by receiving something, it is going to change that relationship. You are going to receive what you desire, and it's going to create more depth, more safety, more connection into that sisterhood, into that relationship. So I hope this inspired you. I hope this gave you practical guidance. This is such an important topic that not enough people talk about. Like I said, I was actually not planning to talk about this at all. But when it showed up yesterday in the mystery school, I thought this is really too important not to talk about. So if you're craving sisterhood, you want to surround yourself by like-minded sisters, you want to grow spiritually, you want to step into your most vibrant self, uncover parts of you, uncover the unseen, the spiritual world, then join us inside the Swan Temple. You belong in our community. You belong with us. We are a super fun group of women who love and play and dance and connect, and we heal deeply, and we learn a lot, and we support each other. And it is just so beautiful for me to watch the relationships that are happening and unfolding, and how these women are bonding. And I am so honored to just be holding space for that, and that this is just happening through my channel, quote unquote, because I got inspired to create this container. But really, you are all making it happen. And it's so beautiful to watch. And it deeply, deeply, deeply nourishes me. I'm going to be really honest myself. I am also very self interested, because this community, I'm also creating it for myself, because I love to connect with women, where I can also have all these deep, witchy, weird, out there spiritual conversations, and where we can learn and grow together. And because we have experts coming in this year, it's going to be so fun for me to also keep learning from these experts with you. If you're feeling cold, check the link in the show notes of this episode. Reach out if you have any questions. You have the option to join just the community, or the community plus the retreat that is in Belgium in August. The retreat is limited to 12 women though, so if that's something you're feeling called to, I wouldn't wait too long. The doors are open until Friday, May 5th. I will close the door at 9 p.m. EST. So join us. We are waiting for you, and we cannot wait to welcome you inside the Swan Temple, my Divine Feminine community. Lots of love, many kisses. Thank you so much for inviting me in your private space. And I'm looking forward to connect with you deeply, my dear sister.